Hello! Happy Tuesday! It is 9:30 p.m. and I am here to talk about where I am in the process, but then also the topic tonight I wanted to talk about was kind of managing expectations. So I'm going to be doing this to just give you a summary of kind of what I think I'm going to be doing as I document everything. I remember I said I wanted to document everything and maybe go on live, so I decided to kind of on my website keep kind of a daily journal of what's going on, as well as a calendar of, like the schedule to see, because I think that's pretty interesting in this whole process to see what needs to be done when you're going through treatments like this, and kind of how if I didn't ever went through this, I would never know how much, how many times I would have to go to the doctor, and sometimes it's like a week or 2 weeks straight every morning, so it's pretty time consuming. And then also I put up a financial thing there too, because on top of all this, everyone always alludes to how expensive it could be, so I just wanted to be completely transparent and put it all out there so it kind of acts as a resource. And then now on, I didn't want to totally get rid of the Facebook Live because I feel like it's a good space to just talk, and then people can ask questions as well. So I'm going to come on Tuesday nights at 9:30. So that's my time for this infertility story thing. I might come on randomly at other times, mainly probably show Tegan to do something, but that's my plan. So let me know if that works for you guys, or if you have any other suggestions, let me know. So to give a brief summary of where I am, you can always go to my site to see the journal, but where I am in this whole cycle thing, it's all going really fast actually, faster than I realized. I finally stopped breastfeeding, which is kind of what was kind of holding me up, I guess. I went to the doctor about two or 3 months ago, but he said I have to stop breastfeeding before I could do anything. And it just took me a while to wean, and it was kind of sad because, it's an emotional bond. But a couple of weeks ago, I finally did that, so now we're just going. This month we're doing the cold culture, which I mentioned before in my story. It is it's basically taking a biopsy inside before doing the IVF, so they can kind of recreate my personal, uterus, I guess, for the embryos to grow in. So the idea is that they'll be more comfortable in that space rather than just, a normal saline or whatever solution that they have. So this month we're doing the cold culture. I won't get too much into it. I'm having the biopsy next week. And then if that all goes okay, then the following cycle I will be doing the IVF cycle with all the medications, and that's the in vitro. So that's the brief summary. And and Cornell apparently closes in June. I didn't know this. So if we don't get it done within these 2 months, I'm going away for a large part of July. So then we'd have to put it off until August or later. So we're hoping to see if we can get a cycle in before then. So enough of that kind of brief, summary of where I am now. Like I said, if you want to see more details, and I'm writing kind of daily journals about specific topics, and it's all going to be on my website, thejazzkatat.com. So, and if you guys have any questions as I'm talking right now, and feel free to just say hi and tell me that you're there. But I wanted to talk about, I was thinking about this, and I wanted to talk about expectations and how do you maintain and manage your expectations. And I always laugh, and I always go back to this TED Talk that I've listened to multiple times. I think the first time I listened to it was probably years ago, probably like 8 years ago. But it's the Barry Schwartz TED Talk, The Paradox of Choice. So I go back to it for the choice thing too, but at the end, you know, his whole thing is like, what's the secret to happiness? And the secret to happiness is low expectations. And it's really true. It's like, you know, and I'm not saying that you should have low expectations with everything. I'm saying you should have realistic expectations. But, you know, if your expectations are too high, you're just always going to be disappointed and you're never going to be happy. So I do definitely believe the secret to happiness is low expectations. So if I go back to like my infertility story with this, I think about the first time around, and I mean for the third time, my third IVF, which was successful, I mean my expectations couldn't have been lower. You know, I was given that 1% chance of having a baby, so going into the third one, I mean of course I was hopeful, but you know, expectation wise it was pretty low, 1%. So of course when I got the news that we were pregnant, it was like I was over the moon. It's like telling someone, I don't know, it's, you know, I'm trying to think of something drastic, like let's say you're going into surgery and they tell you that they have to like amputate your arms or something, and then you get all ready for it, and then you come out of surgery, you wake up and it's like, hey, you keep your arms, congratulations. It's like you had your arms before, but because you had that expectation of it going away, you know, anyway, maybe a little drastic. But that being said, so like if they had given me a 99% chance of having a baby, obviously my expectations would have been very different, and it would have been what was expected to happen. So that's kind of how I think about expectations a lot. And I think I was doing this even before this whole fertility thing. I still remember when I was a kid in high school and middle school, or more high school, I would kind of psych myself out after taking a test. I'm like, oh, I must have failed. I got a D or something. So and I said this out loud once, like, so if I keep telling myself I got a D and then I get a B, I'll be really happy instead of thinking I got an A and then I get a B and then it's like really depressing. But anyway, low expectations. Obviously don't go too crazy about it, but I think it really does. There's something to that. But as I say that, so I was thinking about managing expectations, because the second time around, as I'm trying, it's a lot harder to keep lower expectations, I realized. And I was talking about this to my acupuncturist. She was like trying to manage my expectations, actually, because, you know, obviously my numbers are still the same, the percentages are still the same, but it's really harder to keep my expectations low because I did have a successful round. So I was just trying ways to manage expectations and kind of, and this doesn't only relate to infertility, of course, it's just everything in life. We have expectations for everything. So ways to manage expectations. The first thing I was thinking about is that we just have to have realistic expectations. Like I still have to be kind of scientific and look at the numbers and say, you know, the percentages are still low. I don't know if it's still that 1% that the doctor originally gave me from the other hospital, but even so, in IVF cycle, the percentage of success is still like in the 20s, 22% or something, and obviously it goes lower as you get older, and I'm a lot older now than I was when I first tried. So, you know, that's still not a very good percentage. So I think in general, when you're dealing with things, you just need to be very realistic with your expectations, and that way, you know, you won't be, I don't want to say disappointed, but you'll be happier. And this goes for like everyday life too. Even, you know, people joke with like marriages. Someone will be disappointed because their spouse didn't do something, and then you kind of have to go back and it's like, well, what were your expectations, and what were more realistic? Like some silly thing would be like, oh, he didn't wear that shirt. I was like, well, did you ask him to wear that shirt? Did you just expect him to read his mind? Anyway, so to just have realistic expectations would be the first thing. And then another way to manage, expectations and just scenarios is, I think it's best to, I actually learned this from a business thing I listened to or read. It's like, especially when you're starting out a company, just think of what's your fear? Like, what's the worst thing that could ever happen? So, like, for example, going through this cycle, for me, what's the worst thing? The cycle fails and I don't have a baby. And then, so you think of that scenario and you think, well, what would you do if that happened? And what would be the steps you would take? And I feel like if you think about the worst case scenario and then you think it out and you troubleshoot it, like, what if that did happen? Well, what would you do? And it makes you, one, it helps you find a solution of what your actions would be after if that happened, and it makes it not so scary anymore in a way. And it's like, it won't be so bad. I can get over it. So in that way, if it does happen, you won't be completely, it'll be hard if what you want doesn't happen, but at least you have a plan. Like, you're not just lost. And usually when you think something out like that, it's not as bad as you think it is. There's always hope, there's always a possibility, there's always another way. So that's another thing I'd say about that. And one other thing that I found that really helped with kind of this whole experience and go with the ups and downs is, you make the most of where you are, even if it doesn't succeed. For example, I kind of touched on this a little bit, but that whole time we were trying, our kind of thing to keep us sane is we just went crazy traveling or doing things that we really enjoyed. And one of the things we did say, so let's say if I did the first time around, our biggest fear is we couldn't have a child. And I remember having a discussion with Matt about this, and we were like, well, what would happen if, ultimately we couldn't have a child? And, of course, the adoption and donor egg stuff came up. But then we're even if we can't have kids, then it wasn't meant to be, and our life is still pretty great. It's kind of financially would be well off. I joke, my friend at work calls it, what do you call it? It's JINK or something, joint income with no kids. It's like the best time ever because you just have, what is it? DINK? Oh, dual income. Okay, thanks. Dual income with no kids. It's like the best because, you have lots of financial money you're pretty financially stable, but then you don't have that big expense of kids, and then you can just, eat out and travel. So, even when Matt and I were doing that, we were kind of coming to terms and saying, if it didn't work out, then we would make the most of life and, just keep on doing what we do. But now that, we have Tegan, and I'm completely grateful, and now we're talking about the same thing if we can't have another kid, and we're going to be fine about it. It's just kind of managing our expectations and knowing it's going to be okay either way. But in that regard, I encourage everyone, regardless of what they're doing, is to kind of make a list of things that you always wanted to do, or it's I guess it's like a bucket list. But especially if, let's say you're trying for kids, make a list of the things that you want to do, but may be more difficult to do when you have kids. For us, it was traveling. So each time, we had bad news on the fertility front, I think one time after one of the failed attempts, I just turned to Matt and I was like, so where are we going next? Because you need something to kind of keep you going. So when life deals you a bad hand, it's what you do with the next step. If you just crumble and give in and just feel sorry for yourself, and then they win. So I don't know. I don't know if I just went off topic, but Uh, Basically, I think it's very like this whole process, if you just don't manage your expectations, but also like your own sanity, and it's all about keeping uplifted and looking at the positive. And no matter, and this is not only for fertility, it's for anything. Like if you lose your job, you can, you can go to either way. You can either like sulk and just go down this rabbit hole and it'll get worse and you don't get yourself out of it, or you can be more positive and figure out different ways to go about it. And so, I mean, it's the same for any kind of situation that you find yourself in that you may not want to be in. But it's how you deal with that situation that will make you, a better, even better probably in the long run. So, I don't know. That's my whole spiel on kind of expectations, and I'm trying to manage my own expectations now because, like I said, the first time around, by the end, our expectations were so low, which is why we're so happy, because that's the secret to happiness is low expectations. And especially this time around, it's probably, I have to admit, it's probably higher because we did have a successful round. So I have to try to, be more like, I'm trying to keep myself realistic with the numbers. And if it doesn't work out this time, figure out what the plan is and be okay with it and just go from there. So, I don't know. I encourage you guys to do the same thing in your life, just with everything. And my biggest thing is when it does go down and, maybe the outcome isn't what you want, to just make the best of it. Think of things that you could do to make it better, and not kind of let the whatever happened win and take over. So yeah, anyway, that's all I got for tonight. Let me know what you guys think, and let me know if there's any topics that you want to hear about or you want me to write about. Yeah, so this month and next month, they're going to be pretty busy for me. I'll be talking about it, and I'll especially be journaling about it and just going through the whole process, so anyone can see what it's really like behind the scenes to kind of go through all this stuff. Yeah, that's about it. Anything? Matt, anything? Matt says no. Okay, I'll see you guys. Thanks for listening. Bye.